Midnight Moon. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Sarah Sampino. Chapter 12. Daphne got out of the hospital, and Damien decided to have a party. He claimed that it was a belated birthday party, that he'd been too distracted by becoming a werewolf to plan one before. I thought it was to celebrate Daphne's discharge from the hospital, but he wouldn't admit that. "I'm surprised your parents are even letting you have a party after you just got suspended," I remarked.
"Yeah, well, I'm only turning 18 once. Plus, I told them if they let me have a party, I wouldn't get that tattoo I've been waiting to get for 2 years.
He laughed. I couldn't help sharing his amusement. "Devious. Oh, I can't believe you,"
So I took advantage of the circumstances,"
he admitted with a smile. "Isn't this kind of short notice for a party?" I asked. It was Tuesday and the party was going to be on Saturday. He'd only posted it on his Facebook this afternoon. "Maybe people already have plans." He snorted at my naive question.
"It's a party. People will be there."
He smiled seductively at me.
"What about you? Will you be at my party?"
"Only if you promise not to give me another hickey." I pulled at my turtleneck in annoyance. "I'm lucky it's winter, or I don't know what I'd do."
"It was worth it,"
he smirked. "You wouldn't think that if my dad saw it," I retorted.
"It'll fade in a few days," he assured me. "A week at the most."
"Oh yeah, I guess you've had lots of experience with hickeys," I said, a bit more harshly than I intended. His playful expression clouded.
"That seems like another life."
"It's still your life," I told him. "You're still popular and everything. Nobody else knows about your secret, so everything is still the same as far as they know."
"Nothing is the same,"
he stated fervently.
"Before this all started, the only thing on my mind was having a kick-ass senior year."
"You can still do that," I said. "You can still hang out with your friends and do all the things you did before. The only time you can't is during the full moon." I'd been afraid that he would change the next night, too, but he'd confirmed that it had only happened that one time. He shifted position on the couch and angled his body toward me.
"Being with them isn't the same anymore. They talk about all this stuff that I can't even—"
He broke off and seemed to be searching for the right words.
"I just don't care about most of it anymore."
"You can't relate to them anymore," I guessed, "because of what happened to you."
"Yeah,"
he agreed.
"Their lives are still the same, but everything is different for me. I've got life and death stuff to deal with. Like Daphne,"
he muttered.
"I bet she doesn't care about stupid shit right now either."
"Are you inviting her to your party?" I asked, although I couldn't imagine that he wouldn't.
"Yeah,"
he confirmed.
"We could all use a break from life and death stuff."
"What about Taylor?" I inquired cautiously.
"She can come,"
he said.
"but not Bryce."
Taylor had called me last night after a 2-hour conversation with Bryce. He'd looked up her home number and called to tell her everything about himself. He was born a werewolf, but he didn't know it until his first transformation at 12 years old, because it apparently didn't manifest until about the age of puberty. He'd had a 50% chance of being one, since his mother was also a werewolf. His father had been a regular human, and he'd chosen to remain that way. Bryce had told Taylor that he'd decided he wanted the woman he married to be a werewolf. He was convinced that his father would have healed from his injuries if he'd been a werewolf. Bryce didn't want to lose the girl he loved to injury or illness, which was why he'd so readily agreed to turn Kristen into a werewolf. All it took was one bite while he was in his wolf form. He'd met her when he was 13, the first time she came to spend the entire summer with her grandparents in Wyoming. Her mother had just given birth to a new baby, and Kristen's stepfather felt it would be best if she got away for a while. The occasion was bittersweet, because her mom had been carrying twins, one of whom was stillborn. Kristen shared all of this with Bryce as they got to know each other over the course of that fateful summer. There was a close friendship developing between them that would lead Bryce to reveal his secret to her. She promised never to tell anyone else about it, and he trusted her. Kristen returned the following summer, having suffered another tragedy in her family a few months prior. They'd lost the surviving baby twin in a sad and sudden case of crib death. Her stepfather had taken Kristen's mother on an extended vacation to Europe in an attempt to take her mind off of her grief. It worked to an extent, as she came home resolved to return to her career with renewed determination. Unfortunately, she wouldn't even consider trying to have any more children. Kristen confided all of this to Bryce over the course of the following year. They continued to keep in contact after sharing their first kiss that second summer they spent together. Bryce claimed that Kristen was the first and only girl he had kissed until he met Taylor. "There's more," Taylor had said. "Personal stuff with him and Kristen that I can't get into. Things that happened this past summer. But the point is that he was in love with her. He wouldn't have turned her if he wasn't planning to marry her." "Taylor," I began in a hesitant tone. "If he's a werewolf, then he wouldn't be able to—" "I asked him about it," she interrupted me. "He got it done in a magic ceremony." "Magic," I repeated without inflection. It sounded like an answer you gave to kids. "Yes, magic," she argued, even though I hadn't voiced my skepticism. "Isn't that how you got your psychic powers?" "Yes," I admitted. "But using a spell just to get a tattoo?" "He told me it's like an initiation for new werewolves," she explained. "He heard about it from his uncle. It's very dangerous, and Bryce got really sick. His mom didn't talk to her brother for years after that. They just made up last winter at their dad's funeral." I was fascinated by this story about a family of werewolves. "Was his grandfather a werewolf too?" "Yes," Taylor confirmed. "And I asked how he died if werewolves can recover from everything. Bryce said that old age takes a toll on them too. Their immune systems don't work as well as when they were younger. So werewolves don't live forever either." I had told all of this to Damien, except for skipping over most of the parts having to do with Bryce's love life. He was still skeptical of the whole story, but he had calmed down at least. "What are we going to do about Kristen?" I wondered. "We can't do anything until we know if it's her," he said. That was a much different attitude than he'd had before he found out that the bad wolf might be a girl, but I didn't call him on it. I was just relieved that he was no longer talking about killing anyone. Bryce had told Taylor that whoever had her phone had responded to his text message to Taylor with a reply telling him that she didn't want to go out with him anymore. It had been one of the reasons for him trying to compel Kristen to go back to Wyoming with him. He'd thought that Taylor wanted him to leave. He'd also wanted to get Kristen far away from here after she tried to attack me. Her motive for killing Blair hadn't been clear to him until then, and he hadn't been completely sure that she was the killer. That was another part of his story that I had questioned. Why didn't Kristen just control Damien and make him be her boyfriend if she was the one who turned him into a werewolf? "I'll ask him that tomorrow," Taylor had promised me. "I can't wait until I get my new phone. Mom's going with me after school tomorrow to get one." Damien had been waiting for me again in my driveway after school the following day. At least he had stopped hanging around my yard all night.
"Daphne went home from the hospital today,"
he informed me happily, apparently having forgotten that we hadn't parted on the best terms yesterday. "That's great," I said, because I was really glad to hear it.
"She'll be back in school tomorrow,"
he continued. "What about you?" I asked. "When are you coming back to school?"
"Friday,"
he grimaced.
"It's a 3-day suspension, but they could have just had me come back on Monday. Now I'll have tons of makeup work to do over the weekend."
"Maybe next time you'll wait until you know what's going on before you hit someone for no reason," I remarked, without any sympathy for him.
"I thought we already decided his story was bullshit,"
Damien protested. "You didn't hear the whole story," I told him. "Come inside and I'll tell you."
"Oh, hey, I'm having a party Saturday,"
he mentioned casually after we sat down on the couch. That's when we had the conversation about his birthday party and hickeys. I then segued into telling him what Bryce had explained about his past after Damien said that he didn't want him at his party. He was in a much more receptive mood and listened without voicing any angry comments, although he wasn't entirely convinced. His eyes glinted with keen interest when I talked about the initiation ceremony Bryce had told Taylor about. "What do you think?" I questioned him after I finished speaking. His index finger tapped impatiently on his knee.
"What about the text? How does he think she was able to send you that text?"
This was one thing none of us could explain. He doesn't know. Maybe somebody is working with her, like one of her friends.
"Great,"
he muttered.
"An evil accomplice."
"It's better than an evil puppet master," I declared with a shiver. "That would be so creepy."
"Yeah,"
Damien noted sarcastically.
"because a werewolf trying to kill you of its own free will isn't creepy at all."
"I wasn't really scared," I told him. "Not after the black wolf, after you, showed up. I was more scared for Taylor." A scowl appeared on his face.
"That was a stupid thing to do, going out there by yourself. What if Bryce and I—"
His scowl deepened as he caught himself and trailed off. "You believe him?" I crowed. "You know he's the white wolf who helped you fight off Kristen."
"I don't know anything,"
he groused.
"He's putting all this crap into our heads, but we don't have any proof that it's true."
"We will during the next full moon," I exclaimed excitedly. "He can prove it if he changes into the wolf in front of us." Damien looked less than pleased with my suggestion.
"You want to make yourself easy prey for him. Great plan. He won't even have to lure you out."
"You'll be there to protect me if he tries anything," I argued.
"Who's going to protect you from me? What if he somehow knows a way to control me? Maybe he's given up on Kristen after she failed," Damien suggested. "Maybe he's switched tactics and is going to use me to attack you."
He looked deeply troubled and afraid as he shared this worry with me. "Why?" I questioned. "Why would he want to kill me or Blair? Kristen is the only one who has any kind of motive."
"To go out with me?"
Damien asked incredulously. "Murdering people over a guy seems extreme," I agreed. "But there are all kinds of psychos in this world."
"There's one way to find out,"
he said.
"I'll go on a date with her during the next full moon and see if she turns into a wolf."
"And how are you going to do that?" I wondered. "There's the little problem of you turning into a wolf, too."
"I'll have to make a day of it,"
he decided.
"Ask her out to lunch and keep her out until dark. We'll have to go somewhere where we can be alone."
"That plan sucks," I grumbled. "What if she does something to you?" I realized belatedly how that sounded. Damien, of course, picked up on the unintended implication immediately and smirked at me.
"Would it make you jealous?"
"Not at all," I huffed. "Why don't you just become her boyfriend while you're at it? That would solve the problem anyway."
"I don't want to be her boyfriend,"
he stated, and scooted closer to me on the couch.
"I'm unavailable."
I became inexplicably nervous. We'd kissed before, and I'd even seen him naked, so he shouldn't have been able to fluster me so easily anymore. "Why?" I asked in a softer tone.
"This is why,"
he murmured as he leaned in to kiss me. I placed a hand on his chest to stop him. "But why?" He regarded me in confusion.
"Why do I want to kiss you?"
"Yes," I answered. "What I mean is, what is this? What do you want?"
"I want you,"
he stated simply. "But why?" I repeated in frustration. "Lots of girls want you, so why me?"
"Why do you want me?"
He grinned at the way he had twisted my words around. Then his smile faded.
"You said that you don't. At the carnival,"
he clarified.
"You said that you don't want me."
I did remember saying that, but I hadn't known why I was saying it. "And you acted like you couldn't stand me," I retorted.
"Because you were throwing it in my face in front of my girlfriend," he said. "Why'd you do that? I never harassed you or anything."
I was mystified by what he was saying. Threw what in your face?
My crush on you,
He snapped.
Why'd you bring it up in front of Blair?
You had a crush on me? I asked in disbelief.
I went to plays, Clarissa. Voluntarily.
He studied me for a moment.
You really didn't know?
No, I told him. I never saw you there.
I sat way in the back,
He admitted.
so nobody would see me. Not that any of my friends were there, but I just wanted to make sure nobody saw me.
I still couldn't really believe that he'd had a crush on me. But now you don't care anymore if people see you with me, I said, seeking confirmation of his feelings. He frowned after gazing at me thoughtfully.
I didn't. But now we have this problem with Kristen. We'll have to act like we're just friends if I'm going to ask her out.
Disappointment soured my mood. Or you can just not hang around me anymore at all. That should convince her.
I can't do that,
He stated unequivocally. Why not? I shot at him. She's more popular than me and she wants to have sex with you. You can just go back to your old lifestyle and forget about me. She won't care about me either once she has you.
I could never forget about you, Clarissa,
He said intensely, his green eyes blazing with some strong emotion I couldn't discern.
I don't want Kristen. I want you.
He pulled back after his passionate declaration.
Maybe you don't want me. I'm not a normal guy anymore, and it's dangerous to be around me. Blair found that out,
He added bitterly. I'm not worried about that, I said, or the werewolf thing either. I trailed off, too uncertain of my emotions to be able to express them. I just didn't want him going out with Kristen. Was that really what my main concern was? Did it all boil down to mere jealousy?
How can you not be worried about it?
Damien exclaimed.
Someone tried to kill you, and I'm going to turn into a wolf every month.
So you'll eat all my pizza, I teased. It's a small price to pay for saving my life.
Is that the only reason you like me?
Damien asked.
Because I saved you from the bad wolf?
With help. I couldn't resist reminding him. The white wolf saved me too. But, I added with a smile, I like you more.
Must be because you saw me naked,
He smirked. I looked away shyly, but it wasn't because of that comment. I liked you before.
Before you saw me naked?
Damien inquired in a teasing tone. Before you were a werewolf, I admitted, and stole a quick glance at him. I had a crush on you freshman year, I mumbled as I stared at my lap. His hand reached out to tilt my chin up so that I could meet his gaze.
You did? But only freshman year?
You were kind of a jerk in 10th grade. I had thrown in the kind of to soften the jerk part, but there had been no kind of about it. He smiled ruefully.
Yeah, I kind of was.
His expression turned more serious.
I thought I'd be missing out on something if I didn't.
He trailed off awkwardly and cleared his throat.
I found out it wasn't all that great.
So you didn't enjoy yourself? I questioned skeptically. He flushed at my accusation.
I'm a guy,
he said defensively. I snorted at this lame excuse. Meaning you think with your—
Don't say it,
he exclaimed desperately, suddenly unable to look me in the eye. Why? I asked in dismay. He now looked extremely uncomfortable.
Because you don't, talk that way. You're not like that.
Like what? I demanded, feeling bolder the more embarrassed he became. Like all those girls you—
Yes,
he interrupted me and stood up in his agitation.
You're not like them. Can we drop the subject, please?
The urge to needle him was too strong, and it was my turn to smirk mischievously. You don't want to brag about the girls you
Clarissa,
Damien bellowed. I laughed at him and stood up to call him a hypocrite. Oh, so you don't want to talk about it. You just want to do it. The atmosphere changed as his eyes met mine, and I became very aware of being alone here with him.
Maybe you want to do it,
he suggested in a deeper tone of voice.
Maybe that's why you won't stop talking about it.
I was suddenly the nervous one. No, I assured him with a much less confident attitude. He pressed his advantage now that he had unnerved me and stepped closer to me. His green eyes watched me intently.
You don't have to say it. I know that you want to.
I'm not like that, I stammered. I can't just, not just like that.
I know,
he said, with a gentle caress of my cheek as he smiled warmly at me. Then he smirked again.
So you had a crush on me first. I knew it.
I rolled my eyes now that I realized he hadn't actually been trying to have sex with me just then. Change back into the wolf. I like you better when you can't talk. Damien laughed.
I'd better go. I've got a killer party to plan.
We both sobered at his casual use of that word. Are you going to invite Kristen? I asked.
I have to,
he told me.
I need to start paying attention to her if I'm going to get her to go out with me for the full moon.
You don't have to, I argued. We can talk to Bryce and come up with a better plan.
I don't trust him,
he insisted stubbornly.
I'm going to find out for myself if he's telling the truth about Kristen.
We kissed before Damien left my house, but we were both distracted by our own thoughts. I had serious doubts about his plan to go out with Kristen, and they only intensified when I saw her at his party. She showed up wearing the skimpy outfit she had worn to school for his benefit the day he had been absent. The girl was determined to have him see her in it. The cold weather had forced her to wear a coat, but she removed it as soon as she entered Damien's house. She was one of the first people to arrive after me and Taylor. I hung back with my best friend as Damien answered the door.
Kristen,
he greeted her. Happy birthday, Damien, she said before removing her coat. Where should I put this? He was slow to answer. He cleared his throat.
I'll hang it up for you.
Taylor elbowed me. Don't let him out of your sight, she whispered. Kristen's lips curved into a sly smile as Damien took her coat. As her eyes flitted to us, I wondered if she had werewolf hearing too. Hey, she called out. Hey, Kristen, Taylor answered stiffly, trying to be casual but failing miserably. Her mind was obviously on everything that Bryce had told her about Kristen. Hey, I greeted her, thinking that I had done a better job of hiding the awkwardness of the situation. Kristen's smile appeared to be friendly, but I tensed up as she approached us. Taylor and Clarissa? Yes, I replied. Nice to meet you, Kristen. Yeah, she said and looked at Taylor. So, Bryce probably told you we used to date. She laughed softly at Taylor's deer-in-the-headlights expression. My friend heard you ask him out in class, she explained. I just want you to know it's completely over between me and him, so you don't have to feel weird about it. Oh, Taylor gulped nervously. Thanks. So, Clarissa, Kristen turned her attention to me. I'm glad that Damien has finally found someone nice. Not to speak ill of the dead, but... Oh, we're, just friends. Yeah, that was convincing, I thought. Why couldn't I talk to this not-so-intimidating girl? Was it her revealing outfit? She looked like she was going to a Playboy photo shoot, while I was all covered up in a thick sweater and comfortable jeans. Oh, I thought I heard something about you and him at school, she mentioned with a shrug.
Yeah,
Damien said while he walked up to stand beside Kristen.
We decided that we're better off as friends.
Fortunately, more people arrived then to distract Kristen from us, especially when Daphne gaped at her skimpy clothes after spotting her mingling a few feet away upon her arrival.
Hey, Daphne.
Damien smiled at her.
Glad you could make it.
She was the only one who had brought a present, apparently not knowing what kind of party this was. Happy birthday, Damien.
Thanks.
He accepted the package from her.
I'll open later. Do you want something to drink?
Yes, she answered. Do you have ginger ale? If not, then water's fine. He beamed at her.
One ginger ale coming right up.
Daphne. Kristen swayed her hips with confidence as she walked towards us. I heard you had the flu. Glad you're feeling better. Thanks. Daphne didn't even try to hide her astonishment at Kristen's appearance. Looks like you don't have to stuff your bra with Kleenex anymore, since you're not even wearing one. Kristen laughed, but there was no amusement in her eyes. You're not supposed to tell all my secrets, Daph, but 6th grade was a long time ago. Longer than I thought, Daphne muttered. You'll fill out, too, Kristen assured her. You just have to put on some weight. Better get her something to eat, too, she prompted Damien, who still hadn't left to get the ginger ale. He noticed me glaring at him for ogling Kristen's body.
Yeah. Anybody else need anything?
Before we could respond, his parents entered the room with his twin sisters, both of whom had backpacks slung over their shoulders. Damien's mom cast a disapproving look at Kristen's scraps of clothing, but Kristen didn't notice. Her eyes were riveted on the twins.
Okay,
Damien's dad said.
We'll see you later.
We'll be back in a couple of hours, his mom stressed. I felt myself go cold all over.
See you tomorrow, brats,
Damien told his sisters affectionately. They rolled their eyes at him in unison. Nobody goes in my room, one warned him. Mine either, the other one said. The party's down here, Mrs. Stark stated with a stern look at Damien. Nobody needs to go upstairs.
Okay,
Mr. Stark ushered her toward the door.
We need to go if we're going to make it to the movie.
Cute, Kristen remarked as she watched Damien's sisters follow their parents out the front door.
They're sleeping over a friend's house, he explained. My parents are dropping them off on the way to the movie.
Daphne's face mirrored the horror I felt.
Hey, are you okay?
Damien asked her in concern.
You look like you're going to pass out.
She's probably still not 100% yet, after being sick, Kristen commented.
You should lie down for a while,
Damien decided and threw an arm around her.
Lean on me. Hey, Kristen,
a guy called to her. Do you need help? Kristen asked Damien.
No thanks. I'll be down in a minute, he promised her.
We'll stay with Daphne, Taylor announced. Kristen then turned her attention back to the party as the rest of us went upstairs with Daphne. Taylor had noticed that something was wrong with me, but had enough sense not to mention it until we were upstairs in Damien's bedroom. What happened? Did you get another bad feeling? Damien spun around to look at me after helping Daphne to sit down on his bed.
What's wrong?
I stared at him in shock. She killed her.
Blair,
he stated with a grim expression. I shook my head, unable to speak aloud such a heinous thing. Daphne got the words out, although they were just barely audible. Her baby sister. It was so little and helpless, I sobbed, remembering Kristen's thoughts about how easy it had been to smother the baby. Daphne began to cry too, and I hurried to embrace her because she knew what Kristen had done. She knew. Fuck, Damien swore. I'm calling Bryce, Taylor said. Damien tried to argue with her, but she ignored him. Her call was brief, just informing him that we had new information about Kristen and needed to talk to him about it. He's not coming here, she told us after getting off the phone with him. It would make Kristen too suspicious. He's going to meet us at my house later. She fixed Damien with a worried look. People are going to start wondering where you are. Can you handle going back down there?
Yeah, he said. Just don't meet Bryce without me.
We'll drive Daphne home in a little while, I told him, since I knew that her mom had dropped her off. No, she protested. I want to be at the meeting.
Are you sure you're okay?
Damien questioned.
You just got out of the hospital a few days ago.
I'm fine, Daphne declared. I just can't believe she trailed off with a shuddering breath. "We'll be at my house," Taylor said. "Call Clarissa after the party, and she'll give you directions."
Okay.
He looked at me a few seconds longer before opening the door and leaving the room. We stayed up there for a while, all of us dreading to go downstairs and see Kristen again. When we finally managed to put on our poker faces, we made it to the door without crossing paths with her. I also didn't see Damien anywhere, but that didn't arouse the suspicions it would have before. They were probably in the kitchen getting a drink. Taylor called Bryce as soon as we arrived at her house, and he came over within 15 minutes. We sat in the living room to talk, since her parents were also out for the evening. Bryce looked like someone had punched him after Taylor finished explaining what had happened. Daphne spoke for the first time since we'd gotten to Taylor's house. "What are we going to do about Chrissy?" Hearing her forlorn tone and use of the childish nickname made me realize the depth of her distress, but I still voiced my other concern. "Shouldn't we wait for Damien before we decide anything?"
"We can't deal with this,"
Bryce said in a harsh tone. "We have to do something," Taylor argued. He exhaled heavily.
"I have to call my mom."